D&D players, have you ever had a character idea that was just ridiculous, stupid, impractical, dumb? But still, it's stuck in your head like a catchy tune you heard in Walmart sometime, and it just stayed with you. Never used, always lurking. If so, tell us about that. It's a talking horse. You'd think this would come with some kind of magical backstory about being turned into one, but it turns out they were just born that way. You find out their mother was a centaur and their father was a horse-headed minotaur. And they have a sister who is a perfectly normal human. They're a rogue because nobody suspects a horse as a culprit. Like, imagine you're an orc in a fully garrisoned and protected fortress miles deep into a mountain. You're standing at your post and suddenly you hear a knock at the door. You know you're not authorized to move from your post, but your curiosity overtakes you and you open the door. And a fucking horse is standing there! As your brain races to think of some explanation for the sudden and unexpected presence of the horse, it leans in and whispers, "Nobody will ever believe you." So, how many points of intimidation is that worth? It seems like Angela Hawthorne has been everywhere these days. She has her own front-running spot in the famous Dungeons & Dragons comic, Tales from the Tables. She is front and center in the D&D actual play series, the best available, and if you haven't seen her yet, then you probably don't follow any D&D meme pages or artists because the fan art? Hello? Whew! Now she snagged yet another spotlight in the first episode of our new series, History of Heroes, where we dive deep into the backstories of the characters that make these stories memorable and worth telling. The ponytail-wearing and evil-smiting goddess whose fight for justice seems to never end started in a humble family home in the City of Splendors. With cinematic narration from our very own FDM and breathtaking illustrations from Doodle Poodle, whose art you really ought to know by now, be immersed in her story like never before. Meet the loving family she grew up with, see the very streets of Waterdeep that she played in, and find out about what harrowing events turned this kindly girl into a fearsome warrior for righteousness, whose dedication brought her to the yawning portal to descend into the dungeon of the Mad Mage. My favorite that I've come up with, myself, is a very smart alligator that thinks it's a dragonborn. He carries a dagger in his mouth, and if anyone tries to say that he's not a dragonborn, he stabs them in the ankles. The dragonborn dentist. What is he, an alligator? A warlock of the Tooth Fairy. He extracts teeth for her in gruesome ways. His tragic backstory has driven him mad, with but one motive in mind: to collect the teeth. Not a character, but an NPC idea I came up with for an Eden Doctor. An Eden is a giant with two heads, mind you. He was born a runt, still tall but scrawny, but very intelligent. One head is a doctor physical who does a good job of healing people and such, and the other is a doctor of philosophy and is absolutely no help. He just tries to engage everyone in philosophical debates and makes a good deal of comments. The doctor's name is Hoggy Nog. Damn, we lost him. He's dead. Ah, but did he ever truly live? I recall seeing somewhere about how lycanthropy changes your alignment when you change, and that werebears are lawful good, which means that werebears transform and then go around preventing forest fires and promoting camping safety. A chicken in a clockwork suit or gnomish origin. Not a variant Kenku, Aarakocra, or any other as-of-yet undiscovered magical lineage. It's just a literal chicken inside a gnomish clockwork suit. Uses auto-gnome stats as his racial base, as a PC, but ignores the don't need to eat, drink, or breathe portion of mechanical nature. His name is Cluck Clock. I almost said that really bad. A halfling whose parents are monopods. You know, those one-footed creatures from mythology? Well, if one parent has 1 foot and the other parent has 1 foot, and if 1 + 1 = 2, it stands to reason that their child would have 2 feet and be a halfling. Following a similar form of reasoning, the child of a centaur and a mermaid has a 1/4 chance of being a normal human, 1/4 chance of being a seahorse, 1/4 chance of being a centaur, and 1/4 chance of being a mermaid. I learned so much from doing Punnett squares. A mind flayer who is a brain surgeon and eats the brain of his patients whenever he fails a surgery. Isn't that a conflict of interest? You know, the whole Hippocratical oath of do no harm, have no harm come unto your patients. Ugh. A Loxodon warlock of the Great Old One named Horton. Horton hears Cthulhu. Jesus. Here we have a hag that ate all the children on a secluded island, and all the people left. At which point she turned to the young of animals only to realize that she would decimate her food source if she didn't practice proper conservation cultivation and stays away from dealing with people. So she becomes a hag who is a conservationist, a protector of wildlife out of necessity, and got attacked by a half-orc who gave her only 10 seconds to try explaining the mountains of ancient young animal bones around her hut. Loudly, mind you, counting, while she was trying to speak. Quite an annoying episode that one was. A kobold cleric who's dating a dragonborn barbarian and just cannot stop healing them. He prioritizes her over the rest of the party and exclusively uses his most ridiculous healing spells on her, even sacrificing damage spells to buff his girlfriend. Mwah. The girlfriend does not care and would rather he just stopped. It should have been me! A dedicated cleric of Lolth who just so happens to be violently arachnophobic! An atheist. That's it. Being an atheist in a world where clerics and paladins exist makes 0 sense. Yeah, how about warlocks? Talk about atheism there while Cthulhu's looking at you. A time-traveling knight who uses a broken sword as a weapon. His brother in arms died when tricked by devious means. He travels back in time to save him from said death and help his adventuring party complete their quest. This is Dave from Homestuck. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. We all did. Never. All my character ideas have been 100% awesome. Yeah. I am the master of terrible character ideas. My last character was an obese human named Gary Glorfer. He was an obese ranger that was always in a cart pushed by a goat. He used a halfling's short bow. People always love to place themselves as these perfect Mary Sue caricatures of generic tropes, but where's the fun in that? Bringing something new to the table that changes the group dynamic heavily is always a lot more fun. Onward, Bill! I have to shoot an orc today! I've always wanted to run an elven princess barbarian, a high diplomacy character who acts, most of the time, like a typical sweetheart, always wanting to be friends with everyone and being a delicate flower, etc. And then suddenly going berserk and whipping out her great axe when things start getting real, and then being really embarrassed about it afterwards. Sounds like my kind of girlfriend. Where is she? Something like having an orc like 5 generations back and mindless bloodlust being a recessive trait that could pop up later. I did once play a vampire. I got allowed because of high-level campaign plus the DM liked the concept. Bard, who was just named BD, in short for Blood Drinker. All he did was roam around with his entourage of vampire girls and vampire muscle. He always wore very bright and flashy colors too, like leaf green pants, heaven blue jackets, and a sun gold cloak. He never spoke a single word, but let his crew do it for him by telepathically talking to them. One of my players has a half-orc rogue in another campaign. He was raised to believe that he was an elf. He sneak attacks with a battle axe and is extremely violent towards people who call him an orc. Last I heard, his character prestiged as a dread pirate, and he is now a demon wearing a coat of his own skin. He made his coat after successfully skinning himself. Oh god. I believe his reasoning was that in the campaign, he led demons into battle, and said that the demon with the least amount of kills would be skinned. I once played a barbarian whose rage was triggered by the sight of trees. Were they speaking Vietnamese by chance? When I entered the rage, my armor would transmute into flannel and suspenders. My helm would become a beanie, and the smell of maple syrup would permeate the air. My rage would not end until I felled an entire forest and sent a seemingly random number of logs down a local river. Any leftover logs would then be used to construct a log cabin. It turned out that I was the earthly avatar of Canadia Dinia, god of lumberjacks. My friend was DMing a campaign that was basically supposed to be a Gurren Lagann with more slapstick and dark comedy. That's an anime if you don't know, where countless people were killed each day by roaming machines designed to thin out the planet's population. Well, I played a doctor, straight. Every time anyone died nearby, no matter how meaningless their existence was, I rushed to save them. Giant sarcastic octopus half-assedly attacking a city, I'll rush to save the citizens. Singing orphans being slaughtered while still maintaining tune, I'll save them! Honestly, I was that guy for the campaign. I made the entire thing far more gruesome than it was supposed to be, and I don't regret it. I don't know about stupid, but I've had a character idea for a while now that I haven't gotten the chance to use. He's a gripply fighter, knight, possibly paladin in shining armor, who's convinced that he's a prince who was changed into a frog by an evil witch. Now, naturally, this created a hatred and aversion of witches, and he always goes out of his way for the damsel. The beauty of it is that Gripples can take a characteristic called princely. Furthermore, I don't know if he's actually a prince or a deranged frog. I'll leave that up to the DM where the campaign lead takes us. I had the idea for a Goliath barbarian who thinks he's just a simple lumberjack. He's searching for the legendary bear warrior in order to train under his tutelage. What he doesn't know is that he's actually the guy he's looking for, but he's a werebear, transforms during combat, and never remembers being a giant bear afterwards. He's constantly just a few hours away from finding the bear warrior, mostly due to all the encounter aftermaths that he finds himself in. His int score is too low to be able to recognize the pattern here. Okay, time for my shame! I had been playing 3.5 D&D for years, and I had decided to make the most fucked up character idea possible while still being mechanically viable. The creation of my efforts? King Penguin. King Penguin was a Wu Gen, and the funny thing about Wu Gen is that they are like wizards, except they can permanently change a spell with meta magic if they keep their taboo. Example, taboos given the book. Avoid certain colors, don't touch dead things, never sit down facing a certain direction, etc. The penalty for breaking a taboo was a pain in the ass, but then my idea hit. The character would finish every sentence with the word penguin. Furthermore, he would begin all castings with the word king. So, since in many ways spells are sentences and the experience would be along the lines of King Fireball Penguin! Obviously, silent spell was right out. But then I discovered a feat in a book, Thematic spellcasting. It allowed you to change the visuals of a spell according to a theme. King Penguin's theme? You guessed it, penguins. Then I got the idea of his backstory. It involved the idea of a ship crash and being stranded along a barren rocky coast for weeks, being tormented by what he would only describe as a dire penguin. On record, it is the only time I have ever heard of where a DM has asked the other players to hold another player down as he burns the character sheet for the sake of the group's sanity. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know down below in the comments what was a stupid, otherwise impractical, dumbassery character that you created that you'd like to share with us. We love you all. Be safe. See you next time. Bye for now.